Coming up on ABC 7 News at noon, Tropical Storm Bonnie making landfall, Hurricane Charlie intensifying. We've got live team coverage.
Also, the norovirus shows up in yet another University of Maryland building. ABC 7 News at noon is next.
Who knows what you can accomplish in the time you save by calling Empire today for your new carpet and flooring. You'll choose from a great selection of carpet, laminate, and hardwood right at home. And we install next day. Right now, you'll save 50%, plus no payments till 2006. Order now and get 2 2-for-1 coupons to any participating Six Flags theme park. Come on, it's playtime. Call Empire today. 800-588-2300 Today.
Live from the WJLA Broadcast Center, this is ABC 7 News at noon. On your side.
Residents in Florida are bracing for a double dose of tropical weather with Bonnie and Charlie bearing down. Good afternoon. I'm Allison Starling.
And I'm Horace Holmes. Hurricane warnings have been issued for Florida's southwest coast and parts of the Florida Keys. And the storm's paths have them ending up at our doorstep.
We have live team coverage of the storms. Meteorologist Brian Vandegraff is tracking the storms, and Elisa Parenti has the latest on what our area is doing in preparation.
But first, let's get right to ABC's Eric Hong live in Panama City Beach, Florida, where the first waves of the tropical storm Bonnie are now hitting the state's west coast. And as you can see behind Eric right there, things are dry right now, but it's going to get worse.
Calm before the storm, right?
Absolutely, as we take a look at the storm's path as it's starting to make its way up into Florida at this particular point. Let's go to Eric Hong right now.
Well, so far the folks here seem to be taking Bonnie in stride, but with Charlie knocking on the door, it's clear that the worst is far from over. Gusty winds and rain signaled Bonnie's arrival, the first of 2 storms that have millions on alert in Florida. For much of the state, it's already been a rain-soaked week. And with Charlie now on Bonnie's heels, the potential for flooding has many on edge.
Tropical Storm Bonnie is of concern as it relates to low-lying areas. People here in the North Florida area need to be following the storm very carefully. We're particularly concerned about Hurricane Charlie.
In South Florida, Charlie's ominous approach forced evacuations all along the state's barrier islands. Millions of visitors packed up and then packed freeways, but many were left with a difficult dilemma.
Angry because we don't really have any place to go. We walk in and they tell us we have to leave, so it's like, where are we going to go?
For residents, the answer to that question was clear. They headed to stores to stock up on plywood and other essential supplies.
It's my first hurricane, so a little bit of water, a little bit of peanut butter and jelly, a little bit of tuna. Things we can eat if we don't have any electricity.
It's been nearly 100 years since 2 tropical weather systems have hit Florida in a matter of hours. Placed the National Guard on alert, but are urging residents to be vigilant as well.
We've had storms that have been weeks apart hit similar areas, but to have 2 separate storms impacting the state at the same time is not something we've seen very often.
Bonnie and Charlie could have a significant impact on states other than Florida as well. As they move inland, the storms are expected to dump several inches of rain on an already soggy eastern seaboard. In Panama City Beach, Florida, reporting live, I'm Eric Hong, ABC News. Back to you.
Okay, Eric, thank you. And we continue our team coverage right now of the pending storms with a look at the forecast for our area.
Brian Vandegraff is live outside with a look at our first forecast. Brian.
All right, Allison, as we look outside here today, actually a few bits of blue sky poking through, but the showers and storms will be on their way as we head through the afternoon. In fact, we'll look at our live Viper view and show you a 3D radar of what's happening out there as that moisture continues to stream from Florida up in our direction. You can see it making it all the way from the panhandle of Florida, where Bonnie is making landfall right now, and a steady stream of moisture through Georgia, the Carolinas, will push into our area late afternoon, overnight. In fact, so much rain could fall that we actually have a flood watch up for the region from 12 noon today until 12 noon tomorrow. Let's move over to the graphics and show you Bonnie's track. You can see at 11 o'clock making landfall at Apalachicola, maximum winds at 52 miles per hour, so did not make hurricane strength. Moving right now to the north-northeast at 28 miles per hour. On this path, it'll bring rains, heavy showers, gusty winds to our region sometime early Friday morning into midday Friday. That's a quick look at Bonnie. We'll be back with more on Charlie in the 7-day forecast coming up.
And Brian, our live team coverage continues with a look at what's being done locally to prepare for the onslaught of rain. Elisa Parenti joins us live from the Bellevue section of Fairfax with that part of the story. Elisa, this area really was hit hard by Isabel.
That's so true, and some 11 months later, they're still recovering. They love being this close to the water, but boy, did they pay a price for it last year, and they're hoping that this 1-2 punch doesn't hit them just as hard this time. As Jim and Kobina Higgins walk along the side streets just off Bellevue Boulevard, they see the destruction that remains 11 months after Isabel struck.
Several of them around the next 2 or 3 streets are uninhabitable. There's no question that people can't live there. And so you can see the grass is growing up, and they haven't been able to put it back together.
This house was flooded above the first floor after Isabel. It has been completely rebuilt. Other properties, though, still sit in states of disrepair. Despite predictions by the experts of a very busy hurricane season, Jim simply doesn't believe it could be that bad again this soon.
I've lived here all my life, and this is the only time I've ever seen it this bad, and I would be amazed if it hit again and come up like it did during Isabel.
It is hard to imagine. This morning was incredibly tranquil here to the north in Old Town Alexandria. You don't have a sense of the impending severe weather. Even if the double dose of storms proves less damaging, though, precautions are still being taken.
We make sure we have plenty of candles because during Isabel, our electricity was out for 4 days, and we cooked with electricity. It was very tough.
Metro will also be keeping a close watch on its rail lines, especially its underground subway stations. You'll remember just a few weeks ago, the Silver Spring station flooded and damaged some electronic equipment. That took almost a week to fix. Let's hope something like that doesn't happen again. I'm also hearing that Amtrak is canceling some of its trains, those headed out of New York and Miami today. So call first if you're planning on traveling on Amtrak. Reporting live from Bellevue Harbor, Lisa Parenti, ABC 7 News.
Lisa, thank you so much. Let's move on to some other news this noon. More cleaning is planned at the University of Maryland after another student has gotten sick. Officials say the norovirus has likely spread to yet another building out there. Sarah Lee has more.
Did an invisible intruder enter this building? That was the concern of University of Maryland officials, so they shut the doors of the Clarice Smith Performing Arts Center Thursday night to investigate and decontaminate. They're concerned that the highly contagious norovirus may have spread to this building after a music camp student fell ill Tuesday night. Evan Silverman is friends with the student who got sick.
He just started throwing up and going to the bathroom constantly. And then there was a recital, and he left in the middle of it. And at intermission, I went out to check on him, and he was sitting by the garbage can.
Both music students had been staying in La Plata Residence Hall, the same dorm where teenagers enrolled in a youth leadership conference also bunked. Last weekend, more than 100 of those teens ended up at area hospitals, complaining of gastrointestinal problems like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Doctors diagnosed them with norovirus, an ailment that spreads through infected stool and vomit. People can contract it by eating food or touching surfaces that have become tainted. And that has students like Silverman very concerned.
He threw up in the garbage cans in the hallway, and by the next morning, the garbage cans were still there. And so you have, what he was doing in the garbage cans sitting overnight. That's really disgusting.
Since shortly after the outbreak, campus officials have closed La Plata Hall and relocated students so health officials could swab for samples and disinfect the rooms. Experts say norovirus is untreatable with medication, but usually runs its course in 2 to 4 days. They also say there are no long-term health effects, but people who become afflicted should watch for signs of dehydration. At the University of Maryland in College Park, Sarah Lee, ABC 7 News.
Meantime, the Prince George's County Health Department is also awaiting test results to see if they have the state's first human case of the West Nile virus this year. The person exhibited signs and symptoms consistent with the mosquito-borne virus. Doctors say the most common symptoms of the West Nile virus are mild fever, headaches, and body aches.
It's very scary. It makes me know that, we have to be aware of the situation is now in our eras, and we have to do things to protect ourselves.
And the key is mosquitoes. We want to make certain we try to decrease the mosquitoes in your area.
Experts suggest removing any standing water around your home to eliminate areas where mosquitoes can breed. There is good news for district homes plagued with lead-contaminated drinking water. Yesterday, city leaders announced they will facilitate grants and loans for low-income residents who want to replace their lead service lines. The Water and Sewer Authority plans to spend $350 million over the next 6 years to replace those lead pipes.
The FDA says the district is breaking the law with a link on the city's website to a guide for ordering drugs from Canadian pharmacies. City Administrator Robert Bobbs says that he approved the link to give residents more options for buying inexpensive prescription drugs. He says the city's website has disclaimers.
A terrifying experience for a Burtonsville woman as a knife-wielding man breaks into her home. It happened in the 12,000 block of Loft Lane this morning. The intruder robbed the woman and fled with her ATM card. She was not injured. He was later spotted at an ATM in the White Oak Shopping Center in Silver Spring. The suspect is described as a black male in his late 20s, 5 feet 8 inches tall, 180 pounds, wearing a black t-shirt, blue shorts, and black tennis shoes. The Ashburn man accused of murdering his wife is expected in court today. Back in June, police say Praveen Mandanapu dismembered his wife's body, stuffed it in a suitcase, and left it in a trash bin in South Riding. Mandanapu is charged with first-degree murder.
Maryland Treasurer Nancy Kopp says that she supports a referendum on slot machines, and she believes it should go to the voters. But right now, it looks like Governor Bob Ehrlich is not ready to accept that idea of a slots referendum on the November ballot. The plan sent to Ehrlich last week would allow slots at 6 sites if voters give the thumbs up. There's also an agreement in the 5-year battle over the National Harbor Project. Oxon Hill residents dropped their lawsuit after the developer agreed to several community improvement initiatives. The Peterson Company plan to hire a consultant for downtown Oxon Hill development, including residential development, as well as work with the community to bring a metro stop to that city.
A huge Virginia project, though, could be hitting the skids. House Speaker Bill Howell is hinting that plans to fund a new Major League Baseball stadium near Dulles with bonds would face stiff resistance in the state legislature. But the Virginia Baseball Stadium Authority says financing is already in place and no new legislation's needed. Major League Baseball could make a decision on the future home of the Expos sometime this month.
Coming up on ABC 7 News at noon, we have breaking news of a police officer shot in Montgomery County. We'll get you the latest details, pass them along to you after the break.
Also, Brian is continuing to track the path of Tropical Storm Bonnie and Hurricane Charlie. The latest information for you coming up.
Plus, the explosive testimony from the other woman continues today in the Scott Peterson case. Hear more of what she says Scott told her as he wooed her.
But first, the Shiite rebellion in Iraq continues to rage on. The latest on the U.S. offensive when ABC 7 News at noon comes right back.
Airfare nightmare. She lost her plane ticket on the way to the gate.
Just reissue the ticket. She said, no, you have to buy another ticket.
The airline charged her $1,400 to catch her flight home. Can Ross McLaughlin wrangle a refund? 7 on your side tonight at 5.
No.
No.
No, 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 no.
No.
Bob Evans is an easy place to say.
Yes.
And with 14 great kids meals starting at $1.99, it's easy to see why. Bob Evans. Celebrate the everyday.
Trying to forget that last electrical project you did on your own? Then remember Michael & Son. Family-owned and operated, Michael & Son's been serving the metro area with safe, reliable service for over 27 years. Michael & Son. When you can't, we can.
Who are you going to turn to for in-depth Redskins coverage this season?
Now, our colleague Tim Brandt, who is the sports director for the Washington, D.C. ABC affiliate, tells me that Jansen is done for the season.
Breaking Redskins news, Tim Brandt style, only on ABC 7 News. You're watching ABC 7 News at noon with Doug McElway, Allison Starling, and meteorologist Brian Vandegraff Weather. This is ABC 7 News at noon. On your side.
Let's go overseas in the latest on Iraq now, where the UN Security Council has unanimously approved a resolution extending the UN mission in Iraq for a year. Meantime, chaos in the city of Najaf as U.S. forces launch a heavy attack on Iraqi rebels. Humvees were seen headed to the home of extremist cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. Iraqi Prime Minister Ayad Alawi has called on armed groups to drop their weapons and leave the holy shrine in Najaf. Thousands of al-Sadr's sympathizers protested in the streets demanding U.S. troops pull out.
Star prosecution witness Amber Fry goes back on the stand today in Scott Peterson's murder trial. In a phone call she secretly recorded, Peterson told Fry that The Shining is the best movie ever. That horror flick portrays a man who tries to kill his wife. The prosecution suggests other conversations show signs that Peterson was overwhelmed by the idea of fatherhood. Just how the jury will interpret those tapes depends on who you ask.
Everybody else is spending 16, 17, 18, 20 hours a day desperately looking for Lacey. And he's engaged in this phone conversation. It's unbelievable what it tells you about his character.
Scott sounded to me like he was starting to end this relationship.
Now, it wasn't all exciting. One juror actually fell asleep and several others appeared to lose interest at times. But today's tapes promise to be more interesting. We expect to hear Fry confront Peterson about his wife.
Well, will Kobe Bryant's accuser walk away before the trial even begins? Prosecutors have asked the judge to delay the trial indefinitely, and the alleged victims has filed a civil lawsuit. The accuser's father has also written a letter to the judge saying his daughter cannot get a fair trial. Legal experts say it's about time somebody stood up for her.
If that had been one of my family members, I might have pulled out of the case already. This is a man talking about his daughter. And I ask people at home and everyone here to think about this. If you had a child who had been in these circumstances, suffering these things, wouldn't you speak up too? These are unforgivable errors by the court.
For now, Kobe Bryant's trial is scheduled for the end of the month.
An emissary of Pope John Paul says he's shutting down an Austrian seminary amid a child pornography investigation. But the head of the seminary refuses to resign. Authorities have found thousands of photos that include seminary students in compromising positions.
This is just an unbelievably sad and frightening story. Wild weather became disastrous in New York for two college students yesterday. A couple driving in Queens, New York yesterday drove right into rising water, unaware that there was a down power line under the water. Now, witnesses say the couple was electrocuted when they exited the car. They got out, became electrocuted. The fire department was called in, but the power to the cables had not yet been turned off.
Our guys stood there and they knew that people needed help. Like I said, we're lucky that Con Ed was relatively close. We did get in there fairly quickly.
And in New Jersey, 3 golfers were hospitalized after they were injured by a nearby lightning strike. None of the group was hit directly, but they were standing near a tree that exploded after it was hit. Not a thing to do.
Yeah, and that New York story is so tragic because those officers were so helpless. The live wires there, they couldn't get in.
They knew it was there and they couldn't get in.
Yeah, that's such a shame. Well, Brian joins us now because there's a lot going on in the weather and it's just not about to end anytime soon.
Bonnie's making landfall. I mean, both of these storms are going to hit in Florida, but the impact will be on us will be heavy rains, even some gusty wind. And with the saturated ground we've had around here, a lot of places, we could see trees blown down as well, and not even with that big of a wind gust. Let's get you started and show you the big picture. Lots of moisture, and it's all tracking up from Florida into our direction. Look at the Viper view, 3D Viper view right now. An impressive amount of moisture. First of all, some moisture that was ahead, some energy ahead of the Bonnie system was making its way through the Carolinas this morning. You can see it pushing through South Carolina, North Carolina, and eventually into southwestern Virginia. And here's Bonnie making landfall right near Apalachicola. It's going to continue to push inland, and all this slug of moisture is going to track along a frontal boundary that's just off to our west, and so it's going to funnel it right in our direction. And all this heavy rain is going to be here this afternoon, into tonight, and even into early tomorrow. So that's why we have flood watches up for the region. So that's something we need to pay attention to because a lot of moisture heading up here. And it's not done after that. Charlie will come into the picture later on Friday, and we'll see that moisture heading our direction as well. Let's go over to the graphics, and I'll show you what's happening here on our enhanced satellite picture. You can see Bonnie somewhat falling apart, tropical storm strength right when she's making landfall. But down here, intensifying is a Category 1 hurricane, possibly going to be 2 shortly, and could almost even be a 3 before landfall. Still too early to tell, but it's going to be interacting with some energy when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. That could help intensify it before it makes landfall. Somewhere from the Keys through the middle part of the western half of Florida, so everyone in that area has evacuation notices and also hurricane warnings. Tropical storm warnings and watches for the panhandle of Florida. Obviously, those will be down shortly after the storm continues to push inland. Look at the path, taking it Thursday tonight, 8 o'clock into Georgia, and then by tomorrow early, that rain overspreading our region. Right now, max winds at 52, but Bonnie should start to subside soon as she continues to make landfall right near Apalachicola, moving to the northeast at 28 miles per hour. Now, here's Charlie, a Category 1 storm. Notice making landfall sometime Friday somewhere on the western half of Florida, so everyone on guard. And notice by Saturday late, that moisture is in our neck of the woods. This pass could shift somewhat either way, but still looks like we're going to see a good dosing of rain the next couple of days. In fact, that is why we've got a flood watch up for the entire region from noon today until noon tomorrow as we continue with a good deal of rain for the next 24 hours. Now, real quickly, I'll show you in the forecast the big picture what we've got going on. Temperatures are in the 70s, probably not going to get much warmer than 80. And big picture, you'll see cooler air sinking in. We'll have that 7-day forecast coming up.
All right, Brian, thank you very much. We have breaking news for you now. We're going to go to White Oak, where our John Lyle is standing by.
Okay, there's been a police-involved shooting out there. John, tell us the latest.
Well, just a short time ago, a medevac helicopter landed here behind me just a few minutes ago. This is Lockwood Drive, right behind the White Oak Shopping Center, which is just up the road there. We were down the road. We have some video to show you, shot just probably 15 to 20 minutes ago. We were just down the road at Route 29 reporting on the robbery home invasion that took place early this morning when we saw the first police car go by. They were speeding down this road, Lockwood Drive, and then they converged on one street here in an apartment complex where we saw that there was at first it looked like there may have been an injured police officer, but now we're told by police that the officer was not injured but was apparently involved in a police shooting. There was also it appeared to be a man lying on the ground, and that is where paramedics focused their attention when they arrived here on the scene, and there were probably about 24 Montgomery County police cars here, as well as fire trucks and ambulances. And right now, we do not know the condition of the person that was shot. Last we saw, paramedics were working on that person on the ground, and now, again, the medevac helicopter is here waiting. There is an ambulance also parked in the street just behind me here, and they may be perhaps working on that patient there, waiting to transport them in the medevac helicopter that is waiting. But again, police say all that they can tell us at this point is that the officer reported on a radio a suspicious situation. They do not know exactly what that meant. At first, we thought perhaps police were looking for a suspect in that home invasion this morning, but at this point, we do not know exactly why this officer fired here today. Happened just shortly, probably less than a half hour ago. Reporting live in White Oak, John Lyle, ABC 7 News.
All right, John, we'll continue to follow that for us today. The very latest tonight on ABC 7 News at 5 o'clock.
And we're going to have more news right after we take a brief break.
All right, back for one more chance to look at the weather because there's a lot going on.
All right, Brian is here, so let's go to Brian right now and talk about what's going on with the storms.
Yeah, we've got a lot of moisture heading in our direction. We'll see heavy rain showers tonight through early tomorrow, some gusty winds as well, a little bit of respite tomorrow afternoon, and then again Saturday into Sunday, more heavy showers, some gusty wind. Be careful out there. The ground is saturated. We could have some limbs down. We could also have some flooding problems around here.
All right, Joe Whitty here tonight at 5 o'clock.
All right, dicey few days. Thanks for joining us.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.